The Netflix deal is dead. It was the headline that dominated tabloid social media and royalist blogs for weeks. A supposed £75 million partnership between Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and Netflix declared finished. Done. A colossal failure for the couple who once vowed to carve out a financially independent life outside the walls of Buckingham Palace. But as with most things involving the Sussexes, the truth is far more complicated. Because while royal commentators rushed to eulogize the deal, few noticed a quiet development emerging behind the scenes. Meghan and Harry are actively negotiating a 5-year extension with Netflix. And far from licking their wounds, they are preparing to launch With Love, Meghan Season 2, as the opening salvo of this new phase. Sources within the streaming giant confirm that talks are ongoing, with discussions focusing on a refined content strategy, a term that suggests not a retreat but a pivot. The first season of With Love, Meghan may have garnered mixed reviews, but it did one thing impeccably. It proved Meghan's personal brand could draw global attention regardless of royal affiliations. Yet public perception rarely waits for facts to catch up. The narrative of a dead deal fed perfectly into a long-standing belief that Meghan and Harry's post-royal ventures were vanity projects doomed to fail. For critics, this apparent contract collapse was vindication, a sign that the Sussexes had overplayed their hand, losing favor not only with the monarchy, but also with corporate giants. But inside industry circles, a different story was unfolding. Multiple entertainment analysts pointed out that early contract terminations or renegotiations are standard in high-stakes media deals, especially when initial projects serve as brand pilots. The Sussexes' original Netflix agreement was always a stepping stone away to establish their content lane, not a guaranteed long-term arrangement. And now it seems they are repositioning. What most overlooked is that the so-called dead deal aligns with a broader dual-path strategy. Meghan and Harry are no longer operating as a singular media unit. Instead, they are deliberately diverging their public personas, each focusing on domains that maximize their individual strengths. For Meghan, this means doubling down on As Ever, her growing lifestyle brand empire. From artisanal jams to potential fashion lines, Meghan's pivot is clear: build a business persona that transcends royal narratives. For Harry, it's a return to legacy-driven work, reigniting his connection to humanitarian causes, like Halo Trust, evoking the powerful imagery of his late mother, Princess Diana. This is not failure, it's evolution. One media strategist close to the negotiations said the Netflix contract isn't dying, it's transforming. The Sussexes are repositioning how they leverage their narrative capital. People assumed they'd either win or lose as a duo, but they're playing a far more complex game. The public never saw this coming because they've been conditioned to think of Meghan and Harry as a single brand entity, but behind the scenes, their strategies are diverging with precision. And when an internal memo from Netflix content division leaked, it revealed the real twist. Negotiations are focused on developing separate content trajectories for Meghan and Harry under the Sussex Productions umbrella. In other words, Netflix isn't severing ties, it's preparing for a split-path content model. And if that's true, then the so-called dead deal wasn't a collapse, it was a pivot. One that could redefine how Meghan and Harry control their narratives moving forward. Since their high-profile exit from royal duties in 2020, Meghan and Harry have been on a mission to prove one thing: they don't need the crown to build a life of influence and financial independence. From Spotify to Netflix, from best-selling memoirs to lifestyle ventures, the Sussexes have struck multi-million-pound deals designed to carve out a future on their own terms. Each contract was a statement, a declaration that they could translate their global recognition into sustainable business ventures. But when Spotify pulled the plug on their $22 million deal and Netflix's initial contract reached its expiration, royal commentators pounced. Headlines screamed failure, no more lifelines, the Sussexes are out of moves. The narrative was clear: they had flown too close to the sun. Yet what those headlines missed is that the Sussexes' entire media playbook was never designed for a single platform's validation. These deals were not meant to secure infinite renewals. They were stepping stones to something bigger: self-sufficiency. Behind the scenes, their team had already pivoted. Meghan, recognizing the diminishing returns of the tell-all model, began shifting her focus to As Ever, her lifestyle brand designed to monetize her image through products rather than narratives. With American Riviera Orchard on Instagram, affiliate links, and high-end product drops, Meghan is creating an ecosystem where her personal brand drives direct consumer engagement. Early estimates suggest that each product collaboration post could generate upwards of £800,000, a figure that makes Netflix's content cycles seem like just one revenue stream among many. For Harry, the pivot looks entirely different. While Meghan leans into lifestyle entrepreneurship, Harry is steering himself back toward humanitarian legacy work. His participation with the Halo Trust, walking through Angolan minefields like his mother did decades earlier, isn't just a PR exercise. It's a reclamation of purpose. But to the outside world, these divergent paths are easily misconstrued. Without public appearances together, without joint projects, without mutual press tours, the perception becomes something is broken. Critics see disconnection, insiders see strategy. A source close to the Sussexes media team explained it succinctly. They've realized the joint brand got them out of the gate, but long-term Meghan and Harry as a package has limits. Now they're building parallel lanes that allow them to expand beyond the couple dynamic. Still, that pivot doesn't come without risks. For the royalist camp, the expiration of the Netflix deal is ammunition. See, they can't sustain their fame, but fame was never the end goal. Control was. And control is exactly what they're maneuvering for now. The latest reports indicate that their dead deal with Netflix is a restructured negotiation, not an exit. Netflix's content team is reportedly working on a dual-stream narrative, one series aligned with Meghan's brand building and another aligned with Harry's philanthropic initiatives. Royal biographers may call it fragmentation, but industry analysts call it targeted scaling. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace remains strategically silent, but whispers inside royal circles suggest an increasing openness to private dialogues with Harry, separate from Meghan's ventures. This isn't a retreat, it's a recalibration. But as negotiations deepen and new development surfaces, Harry is reportedly preparing for a private meeting with King Charles without Meghan, a move that could redefine not just their relationship with Netflix, but with the crown itself. For months, the narrative surrounding Meghan and Harry had been framed in absolutes. They were either winning together or failing together. But what no one realized was that the Sussexes had already begun to rewrite the rules of their partnership, quietly, surgically, and on their own terms. The so-called dead deal with Netflix wasn't the death knell royal commentators claimed. It was a strategic pivot, and the key to understanding it lies in how Meghan and Harry are now intentionally splitting their public personas. Sources close to their media team describe it as a parallel path strategy. Meghan will build her entrepreneurial empire under as ever, focusing on product-based income streams while Harry returns to his roots, humanitarian work, veteran advocacy, and environmental initiatives. It's not a separation, it's a division of labor. Meghan's side of the pivot is aggressive and unapologetically commercial, with product drops like artisanal jams, premium wines, and a curated homeware line. As Ever is designed to monetize Meghan's image in a way that no streaming platform ever could. Already, marketing analysts estimate her affiliate-linked Instagram posts via American Riviera Orchard could surpass $10 million annually. But it's not just about money. It's about owning her narrative, transitioning from the actress who married a prince to the entrepreneur who built an empire. Harry, on the other hand, is playing a long game rooted in emotional legacy. His involvement with the Halo Trust, walking through the minefields of Angola, mirroring his mother's iconic steps, signals a deliberate return to his humanitarian identity. Unlike Meghan's consumer-facing pivot, Harry's path is symbolic, tapping into the emotional reservoir left by Princess Diana. This divergence isn't an accident. It's a strategy born from necessity. A media strategist familiar with the Sussexes' plans explained they understood that the couple brand was hitting its ceiling. Together, they're a sensation, but separately, they can infiltrate different spheres of influence. Meghan's influence is consumer-driven. Harry's is institutional. Still, the public wasn't ready for this shift. As Meghan's solo ventures began to take form and Harry appeared more often alone at charity events, speculation intensified. Are they splitting up? But insiders knew better. This wasn't personal drift, it was tactical expansion. Adding fuel to the fire, a report emerged from Buckingham Palace. Harry had initiated private talks with King Charles, discussions that notably excluded Meghan. For royal watchers, this was interpreted as a rift. But in reality, it was a calculated maneuver. By re-engaging with the monarchy independently, Harry is crafting a pathway that allows him to reclaim his royal legacy without compromising Meghan's entrepreneurial pursuits. It's a two-front strategy. Meghan conquers commerce, Harry navigates diplomacy and heritage. Netflix, far from walking away, appears to be adapting. An internal memo revealed plans for a dual-narrative content model under Sussex. Production separate docuseries projects highlighting Meghan's business journey and Harry's charitable initiatives. The days of joint interviews and shared screens may be over, but their influence is far from fading. This approach is bold, it's risky, but it's also innovative. Because by decoupling their brand dynamics, Meghan and Harry are effectively diversifying their influence. They're no longer tethered to the success of a single narrative arc. They're building multiple. And as one senior Netflix executive put it, we're not betting on a couple. We're betting on two power players each with distinct audiences. But the real turning point may come sooner than expected. Buckingham insiders hint that Harry's private summit with King Charles could redefine his royal status while Meghan's business empire accelerates independently. Are they crafting a parallel legacy or quietly preparing for a permanent divergence? The rumors of a peace summit had swirled for weeks, at first dismissed as tabloid fiction, but when multiple palace insiders confirmed that Harry was preparing for a private meeting with King Charles, without Meghan, the stakes shifted dramatically. For royal loyalists, this was the moment they had anticipated. To them, Harry's solo approach signified a soft surrender, a recognition that his future might still depend on the crown. But those within Harry's circle painted a far different picture. This wasn't about retreat, it was about realignment. Sources familiar with the summit's planning revealed that Harry's objective was clear: establish a pathway for royal collaboration that didn't hinge on Meghan's participation. It wasn't a personal rejection, it was strategic compartmentalization. Harry wasn't asking for reinstatement. He was negotiating for legacy independence, a role that allowed him to support royal causes while maintaining his Sussex identity abroad. At the same time, Meghan's camp remained focused on scaling her brand. The latest reports indicated that as ever's business expansion was moving aggressively into high-end lifestyle sectors, home decor, curated dining experiences, and a possible fashion collaboration with a European luxury house, Meghan was laying down her own infrastructure separate from royal optics, built for longevity. But while public discourse framed this as a couple drifting apart, industry analysts and palace observers saw something far more deliberate: a dual-path power strategy. Inside Netflix, leaked documents revealed the term dual narrative development appearing repeatedly in strategic planning sessions. The vision a content model where Meghan and Harry operate in parallel lanes, each generating distinct content verticals, yet benefiting from the shared Sussex Productions umbrella. One Netflix executive described it succinctly: the Sussexes aren't scaling down, they're scaling wide. Yet not everyone within Buckingham Palace viewed this divergence positively. Some senior courtiers feared Harry's independent engagements could blur protocol lines, especially if public perception saw his solo work as semi-royal. The palace's concern wasn't scandal, it was control over legacy symbolism. But for Harry, this was non-negotiable. His humanitarian work wasn't a bargaining chip, it was identity reclamation. By focusing on causes like the Halo Trust Invictus Games and environmental initiatives, Harry was reclaiming the Diana legacy not as a prince, but as a man who could forge his own version of service. Meanwhile, Meghan's strategy was crystal clear. By fully immersing herself in the business sector through tangible products, not narratives, she was crafting a career immune to royal dynamics. As ever wasn't just a brand, it was her exit strategy from being the former Duchess. But the real twist came when an internal email from Netflix surfaced. The subject line: Project Dual Arc, Meghan and Harry, independent storylines. The content was explosive. Netflix wasn't backing away. They were pivoting toward two distinct docuseries. As ever, building the brand, a behind-the-scenes chronicle of Meghan's entrepreneurial journey. Legacy Unbound, following Harry's return to high-impact humanitarian work, separate from royal oversight. This wasn't a collapse, this was a split-power play. And yet the risk loomed. For Meghan, the gamble was clear: could her brand sustain public interest without the emotional pull of royal drama? For Harry, the challenge was no less daunting. Could he maintain relevance as an independent legacy bearer without being perceived as half-in, half-out of the monarchy? But as Meghan's business empire accelerates and Harry's royal negotiations inch closer to a resolution, one undeniable truth emerges. They're not walking away from power, they're reinventing how it's wielded separately. The final question is, will it unite them or quietly divide them forever? The media wanted a clean headline Netflix deal: dead, Sussexes failed. But reality is rarely that convenient. Far from fading into irrelevance, Meghan and Harry have executed one of the most complex pivots in recent public life. Not a collapse, but a strategic divergence, a separation of lanes designed not to distance them as a couple, but to diversify their individual legacies. For Meghan, as ever, has become more than a business. It's her declaration of self-reliance. No longer tethered to royal narratives, she's building a commercial identity where she controls the message, the product, and the audience. The days of Netflix dictating her visibility are over. Now every jar of jam, every affiliate link is a brick in her independent empire. Harry, meanwhile, is rediscovering his power not through streaming deals, but through legacy-driven action. His solo negotiations with King Charles aren't about returning to royal life. They're about reasserting his commitment to causes that transcend titles. Minefield walks, veteran programs, environmental summits. These are not symbolic gestures. They are Harry's way of anchoring his public persona in purpose, not palace politics. For years, the Sussexes operated as a unified brand, a team, a partnership, a single narrative. But in the post-Netflix phase, they're playing a far more sophisticated game: parallel, power building. And that's the real truth behind the so-called dead deal. It was never a failure. It was an exit strategy, a pivot toward autonomy. But as they diverge, questions arise. Is this split path strategy a masterstroke of modern influence? Or is it the beginning of an irreversible separation, two individuals growing in directions that one day might no longer intersect? Their silence fuels speculation. Their coordinated yet separate actions blur lines. But one fact remains: Harry and Meghan are no longer interested in proving they can thrive as a duo. They're now focused on proving they can thrive as individuals who choose to align when it benefits and stand apart when it's strategic. It's not a love story turned business. It's a business turned into two personal empires. And the public, they're now left to decide: is this a power pivot destined to succeed, or a quiet fracture waiting to unfold? Do you believe Meghan and Harry are evolving smartly into individual power players? Team pivot? Or is this strategic split the first sign of an irreparable fracture in their partnership? Team fracture. Comment below. Team pivot. They're playing the long game, smarter and stronger even apart. Hatch team fracture. This divergence is the beginning of a slow, silent separation.